challenging the suspension of Kuldeep Sengar's life sentence in the Unao rape case. Prime Minister attends Christmas prayers at Delhi Cathedral in a message of Sabka Saath, but opposition sees red, says PM celebrates while Christians are being attacked in BJP-ruled states. Bangladesh's rising extremist violence now targets more minorities. Explosion at a bridge kills one close to a church. Centre orders ban on new mining license in the Aravallis, but the question remains, who will halt mining mafia? CNN News 18 exposes rampant plunder of our hills as illegal mining continues. 12 killed in bus fire tragedy in Karnataka, 9 dead after bus coming in from opposite side veers off in Tamil Nadu. Multiple instances put the focus on highway regulation and compliance. Karnataka Transport Minister puts the blame on lorry drivers, says such tragedies can be prevented by curtailing travel between midnight and 4 a.m. on highways. More voices rise in condemnation after Telugu star Shivaji blames actor Nidhi Agarwal's attire for the deplorable groping incident. Mall singer Chinmay Sripada accuses him of justifying barbaric behavior. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today attended Christmas service at the historic Cathedral Church of the Redemption in New Delhi. The morning service featured special prayers, hymns, carols and readings celebrating Christmas. A special prayer for the Prime Minister was also offered. The Prime Minister has been celebrating Christmas with Christian community over the years, while it sent out a strong message of Sabka Saath. The Christian outreach has irked the opposition. The Congress has accused the PM of putting up a great farce by pretending to show love for Christians. Meanwhile, Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijay has also accused the Sangh organizations of attacks on Christmas celebrations across India, including in Kerala. This comes amidst disruptions by some right-wing groups in Assam, for example.
Sir, we are so glad to have you in our community this morning.
Meanwhile, Catholic Bishops' Conference of India President Archbishop Andrew Tassat has, on Christmas Eve, appealed to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Amit Shah and Chief Ministers of various states to ensure strict enforcement of law and extend proactive protection to Christian communities across the country. My colleague Pallavi Ghosh is joining us with more on this. There is no denying that there have been several instances, Pallavi, that should irk not just the state governments, which law and order is obviously under their subject, but it could be a matter for central consideration as well, because many of them are happening in BJP-ruled states.
Yes, and if you go by the constitution, Shivani, it very clearly says that everyone has the right to freedom of religion. You can practice your faith, any religion that you are pursuing, and no one can stop you from doing so. And that is also a denial of your constitutional rights. I think the Prime Minister, when he went to the cathedral today, early this morning, to offer his Christmas prayers, that was the kind of messaging he wanted also to send across, very silently but very strongly, to all those who are trying to disrupt the Christmas celebrations across the country, especially in BJP-ruled states, that when I am following this custom, when we think that all of us who celebrate and respect all religions, and why should these kind of disruptive activities be taking place? As you've been rightly pointing out, Shivani, it hasn't cut much ice with many of the opposition-ruled states. They see Prime Ministers going to a cathedral only as a kind of a photo opportunity, as a pretense, because unless you don't come out with a stern warning and stop Bajrang Dal and many of the other BJP state units on the BJP-ruled states, then, you know, the Prime Minister is not walking the talk as far as, say, trying to stop people from disrupting Christian celebrations. Celebration of religion, the rights of the minorities, has now become a huge flashpoint between the BJP on one side and the opposition parties on the other. So whether it's the Congress, whether it's the Trinamool Congress, or whether it's the left parties, all of them have made this charge against the BJP that they specifically target the minorities. The minorities in our country are very, very insecure.
Right. As far as, this entire move by the Prime Minister is concerned, Pallavi, also take us through, as we have been mentioning, that this isn't the first time. While the opposition may accuse him of, putting up just a kind of a cursory message. He has been on many occasions interacting with the Christian community, but also taking their concerns on board and celebrating, for example, their biggest festival, Christmas, with them.
I remember when this whole controversy was happening over the Waqf board, there were representatives from the minority community, which is the Muslims, who would come to meet the Prime Minister. He would hear them out. Periodically, the Prime Minister also has met representatives of the Bishops' Conference as well, because he also hears them out. But this is exactly the question which the opposition parties are saying. Are your meetings only restricted to photo opportunities? Do they mean nothing on the ground? Because how is it if the Prime Minister himself is wanting to send out a message that I respect all religions, I'm ready to meet, and I am meeting all religious representatives to get their inputs on multiple matters? Why is it that on the ground this message has not gone down as far as the BJP workers or his ancillary units like the Bajrang Dal is concerned? Is the Prime Minister playing the good cop, bad cop? That's the question which the opposition parties are asking.
Right. Well, obviously, as far as these organizations on ground are concerned, they have placed some misplaced anger against Christmas celebrations when their main issue is about proselytizing activities that are run by missionaries, for example, in India. But let's also listen in to what members of the opposition are saying on the Prime Minister's outreach of sorts to the Christian community.
आप कल्पना कीजिए, जबलपुर में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की एक महिला नेता ने एक नेत्रहीन महिला को जिस तरह से गाली गलौज किया और उसके सामने उसकी छोटी सी बेटी के लिए कहा कि तू इसको धंधा कराने के लिए लाई है। ये शब्द है बीजेपी की एक महिला नेता। ऐसी बीजेपी को आपने सत्ता में देश के अंदर बिठा दिया है, जो चर्च के सामने कल बरेली में हनुमान चालीसा का पाठ कर रहे हैं। भारत की पहचान महात्मा गांधी से है, भारत की पहचान गौतम बुद्ध जी से है, भारत की पहचान किसी हिंसावादी देश के रूप में नहीं है, भारत की पहचान गोडसे से नहीं हो सकती, गांधी से है, गांधी से रहेगी।
Delhi High Court's recent decision to suspend former BJP MLA Kuldeep Sengar's life sentence in the Unao rape case has sparked nationwide outrage. The spirit of justice has been betrayed. Questions are now rising over CBI's handling of the case. In a mega exclusive, CNN News 18 has accessed documents submitted by the probe agencies, and the details are startling. The CBI admitted that an MLA isn't considered a public servant under Section 21 IPC. This, of course, had a direct impact on Sengar's sentencing. The agency didn't support the survivor's 2019 petition to try Sengar under more severe IPC charges, citing they weren't squarely applicable. Now, even the trial court had noted that CBI's investigation was unfair, disadvantaging the survivor. Her family alleges the agency colluded with the rape-accused Sengar to suppress evidence and produced fabricated documents. Let's break this down for you. Let's tell you the three big moves that the CBI possibly could have done better at. Now, this has become a matter of legal formalism versus what should be greater justice for a victim, especially in a case like this. So, CBI used technical argument to say that the MLA is not public servant. We know that this has become a bone of contention. Even the court has remarked that the stringent POCSO section cannot apply on Sengar, and therefore his minimum sentence has already been served because he cannot be categorized as a public servant. The CBI also made the same argument, and that of course weakened the graver POCSO sections against the accused. We don't know whether it would have been weak in any case, because the court has also remarked that the POCSO sections cannot be applied. But did the CBI do enough? And now, of course, the CBI is wanting to appeal this. Could they have done better in the first place? So the question is, if the CBI prioritized this legal argument, defensiveness, over what could have been a stronger prosecution for the accused or the convict in this case. Now, the other is that the investigation was marked by bias, not neutrality, is an allegation that has been made. Now, High Court's own record is showing that there was inescapable conclusion that probe wasn't fair. So the question is the victim justifying that there is alleged collusion as far as the CBI and the convict in this case is concerned. CBI also withdrew institutional support when it mattered. Is that the big allegation when the victim sought in 2019 that Sengar should be tried under more stringent provisions as a public servant accused of rape? The CBI had back then also not backed the argument, saying that it wasn't squarely applicable. Now again, this has become a grave matter of whether sections of law are to be applied as is, or can there be some discretion in cases like this? And this could well become a case that could open up a larger debate. The question is, did CBI's refusal make it harder for victim to get justice? It should be noted that even then, the trial court had indeed sentenced Sengar to a life sentence. But what has happened in a remarkable turnaround is that the High Court has indeed paid notice to this section that Sengar cannot be considered a public servant. Now, that's the law, but people are asking if more could have been done. The survivor continues to fight for justice. She spoke exclusively to my colleague Ananya. Let's listen in.
मेरे साथ फिलहाल इस केस की पीड़िता यानी जो जिनके साथ दुष्कर्म करने की कोशिश की गई वो थी। किस तरीके से आप देखती हैं जो आज निर्णय कल हाईकोर्ट की तरफ से आया, मुझे ये बताइए।
मुझे इस निर्णय से मुझे बहुत दुख है, मुझे आहत हो रही है और मुझे लगा मैं हाई कोर्ट में ही अपना सुसाइड कर लूं, लेकिन मेरे साथ में बहुत गलत हुआ है। क्या 30 जारी कोर्ट के जज साहब देवेंद्र शर्मा अनपढ़ थे जो उनको सजा सुनाई? हाई कोर्ट के जज ऐसा क्या है कि वो ना सुप्रीम कोर्ट के हाई लेवल पे है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजों से हाई लेवल नहीं है, लेकिन उन्होंने पता नहीं क्या देखते हुए उनके फेवर में ऑर्डर सुनाया। मेरे चाचा की बेल खारिज होती है, उसके बाद में मेरे परिवार की, मेरे गवाहों की, मेरे पैरोकारों की सुरक्षा हटाई जाती है। उसके बाद उसमें बहस हो जाती है 3 महीना बहस होने के बाद 3 महीने बाद ऑर्डर आता है। बहस होने के 1-2 दिन बाद अगर ऑर्डर आता तो मुझे देश को मैसेज जाता, पब्लिक को मैसेज जाता कि ऐसा हुआ, लेकिन 3 महीने बाद आया था कि पूरा सुरक्षित करके तब ऑर्डर आया। मेरे पति को मरवाया गया, मेरे बच्चे दूध पीते बच्चे हैं, 7-8 करोड़ की धमकी दी जा रही है कि कंप्रोमाइज करें नहीं तो मार देंगे। उनके लिए सुरक्षा क्या चीज है? 5 लोग कुछ नहीं है, वो कभी भी मार सकते। बस मेरा यही है कि मुझे न्याय दिया जाए और इनको इस मामले में जमानत ना दी जाए, क्योंकि ये देश का पहला ऑर्डर है जो हर बेटी की हिम्मत को तोड़ दिया।
आज मैं आपकी माता जी के साथ मौजूद था और आप जब उनसे बात कर रही थी, कुछ सुरक्षा को लेके भी कुछ दिक्कत हुई। आप एक दूसरी गाड़ी में थी, हम लोग एक दूसरी गाड़ी में थे। सुरक्षा
के मद्देनजर तक देखते हुए मुझे उन्होंने बोला कि आप सुरक्षा के अंडर में हैं, आप बाहर नहीं जा सकती हैं, और उनका कोई कसूर नहीं, उनकी सुरक्षा जो कोर्ट ने लगा रखी है, उन्होंने कोर्ट का उल्लंघन नहीं किया।
गुस्सा है, दर्द है,
गुस्सा है, सब कुछ है। उनकी बेल खारिज की जाए, हमारा यही हाथ जोड़ के रिक्वेस्ट है। हमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट पे आंख बंद करके भरोसा है कि हमें न्याय मिलेगा और हमें जनता न्याय दिलाएगी।
My colleague Aman Sharma is also joining us with more on this. Aman, what's curious to note here is that the CBI is now saying they're going to appeal the suspension of the sentence, which was precisely on this aspect that he cannot be considered a public servant. But in the past, they have actually backed that argument, legally speaking.
Well, Shivani, yes, now the CBI is saying that it's going to challenge this judgment in the Supreme Court with a special leave petition. Also, they are saying that it is the CBI which secured a conviction in the first place in the trial court, despite all that is being said against the CBI. It also says that it vehemently protested the bail or the suspension of the sentence of Mr. Sengar while arguing in High Court. But the documents here, the court judgment itself of the High Court, the victim's family is raising strong questions on the CBI. Look at the first argument where the court, when it says that Mr. Sengar can't be considered a public servant under POCSO, the special public prosecutor of the CBI tells the court that yes, even though it has been held by the apex court in an earlier case that an MLA is not a public servant as defined under section 21 IPC, it is for the courts to adopt the principle of purposive construction. So the CBI there in a way admitting before the court that yes, there is a judgment earlier of the Supreme Court which says he cannot be considered a public servant, but can you do something about it by the way of purposive criticism? Obviously, this did not cut any ice with the court. Then I would like to point to you paragraph number 16 of the High Court judgment, in which the court is saying that the learned trial court, it is quoting from the trial court's observations, that it is an inescapable in conclusion that the IO of the CBI did not conduct a fair investigation in the matter, resulting in a disadvantage to the case of the victim and her family members. This is also very striking comment by coming in the court judgment. Then the victim tells the High Court that even after the investigation was transferred to the CBI, fairness and impartial impartiality were not ensured. The most damning, I would say, towards the end of the judgment, in para number 40, the High Court is noting that the learned counsel for the victim has drawn the attention of this court to a catena of points which have been highlighted in the earlier judgments to contend that the investigation was faulty and the appellant, who was in a position of authority, has bent the law to his advantage, and a premier institution like the CBI has been compromised in the nature and manner of collecting evidence. I think what the High Court pointed out regarding the 2019 trial court order, in fact, has been very important in the judgment. In 2019, the victim's family may be realizing that the POCSO charges on public servant may not stand. They wanted graver charges of the IPC to be put on the Mr. Sengar, because saying that, he is in a position of power, he's an MLA. So the IPC stiffer provisions should apply to him, which would ensure life imprisonment. In that particular application, the High Court has noted that the CBI did not support that petition. In fact, the CBI said no more charges are required. This is what has been also been noted by the High Court in its judgment, that the order passed by the trial court in which it dismissed the petition of the family to put graver charges of IPC, that it was not supported by the CBI, the petition of the family. So all these things together raising question marks over how the CBI has also handled the case. And yes, though they secured a conviction, but when it came to the High Court, this particular defense that the Supreme CBI was putting, that Mr. Sengar is a public servant under the POCSO Act, that simply has collapsed, and that is why the CBI now has to go to the Supreme Court to make its case there before the Supreme Court bench.
Well, tricky issue here, whether the graver section does apply to him or not, or whether the CBI could have done more. In fact, when I spoke to the survivor's lawyer, Mahmood Paracha, he also made the charge that the CBI has been hand in gloves in ensuring that Sengar gets this suspension of sentence. I spoke to him about the setback that they have received as far as the suspension is concerned and what can be done next. Here he is expressing his views on what happened with this order. Are you saying the CBI is at fault here? Are you making that charge?
100%. They were hand in glove. They've made their 100% effort to get him acquitted. But despite that, so much evidence had come that the court could not give a finding other than his conviction. That is the real story. The central government is trying to withdraw. They have actually placed best of the lawyers, costliest of lawyers, best of lawyers in Supreme Court to have the security withdrawn from the girl as well as from the family. They were successful in getting the security withdrawn. But we had to fight tooth and nail to even maintain the security of the survivor. But in the best effort of the central government and state government is to put them under so much pressure that you will be killed, otherwise compromise. Okay. And interestingly, I will tell you one more interesting fact. For the first time, one lawyer in the High Court, appearing from CBI, was trying to do his job honestly to some extent. To some extent, not entirely. He was not allowed to continue in this case. So do I need to say anything more? Nothing has been said about this aspect in the judgment.
Do you think that this is a sort of a small victory for you, that finally the Central Bureau of Investigation has gone ahead and decided to file this entire application in front of the Supreme Court?
It is a one-step victory, I would say, because we have a long way to go, and the way she has suffered and the way things have been manipulated since beginning, I think we are in a way satisfied, but still apprehensive till the time it is not filed. And even if it is filed, what is the next step? Like what Supreme Court decides is the main factor.
Delhi High Court was of the opinion suddenly that Kuldeep Singh Sengar was not a public servant. How do you see this? He was still an MLA. So what were the arguments that you think might have gone ahead, or what was the exact issue that might have?
So how does that matter to the rape? I mean, the crime itself is so grave, and when the government says they are serious about beti ko bachao, beti ko padhao, balat ab ki baar ye sarkar bahut hua nari parvar. And does that matter if he is a politician or if he is not a politician, if he is a public servant, not a public servant? He can't get away with the crime. The crime is same and the law is same for everyone.
You met the leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi yesterday. What is the future plan of action? Are you seeking time from the Prime Minister or the Home Minister as well?
We have been asking time from them. We've been writing to them and we've been asking, this girl has been asking that I want to meet because she needs some ray of hope. Till yesterday her husband was suicidal and I was trying to do counselling personally. She was suicidal. I think after meeting one prominent leader of the country, they found little solace, and I think they found little motivation that yes, there are people with them, the powerful people, as she wanted to meet. So we went ahead.
During the course of this entire matter, in the High Court, in the trial court, raises big questions upon the CBI.
Now, the centre has ordered a complete ban on granting any new mining leases across the fragile mountain Aravalli range stretching from Delhi to Gujarat. The Environment Ministry says this is aimed at safeguarding one of India's oldest ecosystems, which is already pretty battered by decades of exploitation. But on the ground, the story is different. In Rajasthan, reports of rampant illegal mining continue to surface. In fact, if you visit, for example, Alwar district, you can possibly see this from the naked eye. Defying both Supreme Court rulings and government directives, this continues to go on. Activists warn that unchecked quarrying is eating away at the hills, threatening water security and biodiversity. So while Delhi has announced greater protection in days to come, the Aravallis remain under assault. Take a look at this CNN News 18 ground report showing you the reality.
अलवर के गोलेटा के पहाड़ के इलाके के अंदर ट्रैक्टर लगातार दौड़ रहे हैं। ये आप देखिए कि यहाँ पर लगातार पहाड़ों में इस वक्त आप खनन चल रहा है। आप देखिए कि ये पहाड़ है जो अलवर शहर से बिल्कुल नज़दीक है, तकरीबन 7 किलोमीटर की सीमा के अंदर है और पुलिस थाना भी काफ़ी पास में है। तो लगातार जो खनन है इस वक्त अरावली को लेकर जिस तरीके का बवाल है, खनन पर रोक है, तो अब केवल ये नहीं है कि कहीं पर जहाँ वैध खाने हैं वहाँ पर चल रही है, अवैध भी चल रही है। अब इन पहाड़ों का क्या होगा, बचेंगे नहीं बचेंगे? देखिए पूरी तरीके से पहाड़ है लगभग साफ हो गए। जो खनन माफिया है वो लगातार अरावली को खोद रहे हैं और इससे आप अंदाज़ा लगाइए कि अगर यहाँ से अलवर से अगर 1500 से लेकर 5000 डंपर प्रतिदिन अगर यहाँ से अवैध खनन हो रहा है तो उसके बाद में अंदाज़ा लगाइए कि किस तरीके से अरावली बचेगी। इसीलिए अलवर के अंदर बड़ी तादाद में कई इलाकों में जो टपूकड़ा का इलाका है, भिवाड़ी का इलाका है, वहाँ पर पहाड़ साफ़ हो गए अरावली के बड़ी संख्या के अंदर। इसके अलावा रामगढ़ के अंदर बड़ी संख्या में साफ़ हो गए। अब अलवर शहर के पास में, शहर की बाउंड्री से ज़्यादा दूर नहीं, वहाँ पर किस तरीके से खनन माफिया खुले आम यहाँ पर अवैध खनन कर रहे हैं। अरावली को लेकर 100 मीटर की नई परिभाषा और इस बीच में जब तक पूरी तरीके से नियम तय नहीं हो जाए तब तक खनन पर रोक के बावजूद इस वक्त अलवर के अंदर है। अलवर की तस्वीर आप देखिए कि किस तरीके से जेसीबी चल रही है, पहाड़ों को खोदा जा रहा है, काटा जा रहा है। ये गोलेटा के पहाड़ है अलवर के और अलवर शहर से ज्यादा दूर नहीं है। उसके बावजूद आप देखिए कि यहाँ पर इस तरीके से पहाड़ों को काटा जा रहा है और ये लगातार चल रहा है अवैध खनन। आप देखेंगे कि इस तरीके से अब यहाँ पर ये बिना इजाजत भी है, खनन की परमिशन भी नहीं है, उसके बावजूद भी चल रहा है। अरावली के पहाड़ों को बचाना काफी चिंता की बात है और ये अभी से नहीं चल रहा। तकरीबन जो 2010 की जो रिपोर्ट है, इंटेलिजेंस की रिपोर्ट है जो पूर्व मुख्यमंत्री अशोक गहलोत के कार्यकाल की है, जिसमें 1500 डंपर प्रतिदिन की बात की जा रही है जो इस तरीके से अवैध खनन हो रहा है और ये संख्या तकरीबन फॉरेस्ट की रिपोर्ट है उसमें तकरीबन 5000 के डंपर प्रतिदिन की है। गोलेटा की जिन्हें पहाड़ियां कहा जाता, अरावली की पहाड़ियां, ये अरावली की पहाड़ियां आप देखिए कि किस तरीके से अभी भी यहाँ पर अवैध खनन चल रहा अंदर और पहाड़ियां लगातार खोदी जा रही है। आप देखिए कि साफ कर दिए गए पहाड़ बड़ी तादाद के अंदर। ये जो पहाड़ यहाँ पर आगे तक थे वो साफ हो गए। फिर उसके बाद में दूसरा पहाड़ यहाँ से शुरू होता, ये इन घरों के पीछे से जहाँ मकान बन गए, ये पूरा का पूरा पहाड़ है जो इस सीमा से देखिए कि पूरा का पूरा यहाँ से पूरा खोद दिया गया पहाड़ और आगे तक आता जो यहाँ बड़ के पेड़ तक का पहाड़ था वो लगभग खत्म कर दिया गया। आपके ये पहाड़ तो वैसे ही खुद। अब देखिए कि ऊपर तस्वीर में देखिए ब्लास्टिंग, इस वक्त ब्लास्टिंग हो रही है। आप देखिए कि तस्वीर में न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया के कैमरे पे देखिए कि इस वक्त जो धुआं उड़ रहा है ये ब्लास्ट किया गया। आप देखिए कि दिन दहाड़े यहाँ पर बारूद से पहाड़ को उड़ाया जा रहा है, बिल्कुल काला निशान। आप देखिए कि बिल्कुल धमाका के साथ में यहाँ पर पहाड़ को दिन दहाड़े ब्लास्टिंग की जा रही है। आप देखिए कि किस तरीके से कितना मुश्किल होगा। तेज धमाके की आवाज यहाँ पर आई। इस वक्त धुएं के गुब्बार उठे, इसलिए ब्लास्ट किया। और यहाँ पर आप देखिए कि बिल्कुल यहाँ पर अभी भी धुएं के गुब्बार उठ रहे हैं, ये ब्लास्टिंग की वजह से। अब दिन दहाड़े इस तरीके से पहाड़ों को तोड़ा जा रहा। बड़ा हिस्सा देखिए कि ब्लास्ट करके उड़ा दिया गया। इस तरीके से जो गांव के लोग परेशान हैं कि इस ब्लास्टिंग की वजह से उन्हें परेशानी हो रही है, धमाके की आवाज़ आती है और पोल्यूशन होता है। इसके अलावा उनके मकानों में कंपन होता है, उनको डर रहेगा उनके मकान कहीं न गिर जाए। लेकिन रोकने वाला इनको कोई नहीं, क्योंकि मिलीभगत से सब कुछ चल रहा है।
Even as the centre has announced greater protection, there are clearly concerns that continue, and this isn't a matter of now or post the Supreme Court judgment alone. This has been a matter of decades in Aravalli ranges, particularly in Rajasthan. My colleague Payal Mehta spoke to the Union Minister concerned, Bhupendra Yadav, over the whole issue. Listen in.
मामला आता है अरावली का। लगातार आपकी सरकार को ट्रोल किया जाता है, कहा है कि जो कोर्ट का डिसीजन आप समर्थन करें क्योंकि उसमें इकोनॉमिक वेलफेयर है आपका।
ये तो गलत है, हमारा तो कोई इकोनॉमिक वेलफेयर नहीं है। क्या इकोनॉमिक वेलफेयर है?
ये जो 100 मीटर्स की बात की जा रही है उस पर कहा जा रहा है कि आपकी सरकार ने किया क्योंकि उनका इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट।
पहली बात तो ये कमेटी हमारी नहीं है, कमेटी कोर्ट ने बनाई है। कमेटी में हमारी मिनिस्ट्री के अलावा हमारा ही एक संस्थान FSI, जियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया और CEC हैं, 4 राज्य हैं। और इस डिसीजन के आने के बाद तो कोई नई माइनिंग लीज के लिए बैन हो गया और जिलों को पहले साइंटिफिक मैनेजमेंट प्लान बनाने की बात हुई है और उसको भी ICFRE से अनुमति की बात हुई है और उसके बाद भी सस्टेनेबिलिटी का एस्पेक्ट रखा गया है और उसके बाद भी आगे बढ़ाया जाए तो रेस्टोरेशन प्लान किया जाएगा। और जो अरावली का जो ऐसा एरिया है जिसमें कोई हस्तक्षेप नहीं किया जा सकता है, वहाँ तो पूरी तरीके से माइनिंग बैन है। केवल उतना ही बैन नहीं है, उसका जो ESZ एरिया है उसके 1 किलोमीटर तक बैन है। बहुत सारे और प्रोटेक्टेड एरिया है, वहाँ पर पूरी तरीके से बैन है। दिल्ली में पूरी तरीके से बैन है, गुड़गांव, फरीदाबाद, नूह में पूरी तरीके से बैन है। तो इस जजमेंट के बाद तो 90% एरिया तो पूरी तरीके से सुरक्षित हो गया है। और मैं तो अब भी कह रहा हूँ जो लीगल माइनिंग है वो तो 0.19% एरिया पे ही है और इसलिए इसमें कुछ भी बढ़ने की संभावना नहीं है। बल्कि अभी तक जो साइंटिफिक तरीके से नहीं हो रही थी, साइंटिफिक तरीके का मैनेजमेंट प्लान आ रहा है तो इसका तो बेहतर होना चाहिए।
आप राजस्थान।
All right, let's get you some updates from Bangladesh now, which continues to be on the boil. Even on Christmas Eve, Dhaka was rocked by terror. A crude petrol bomb was hurled just outside the Assemblies of God Church. The blast killed a 21-year-old youth hours before Christmas prayers. This is not an isolated incident. It comes just days after the Hindu man Deepu Das was also lynched by a mob, and there have been other attacks on Hindu families across Bangladesh, from Hindu men being lynched to Christians being attacked and targeted. Islamist violence is on the rise in the country. So-called reaction theory collapses when minorities across communities are attacked, because initially people in Bangladesh, the government, administration, thinkers had tried to suggest that India is to be blamed for what happened to Deepu Das. The government under Mohammad Yunus, though, offers little beyond lip service. As critics allege, Islamists are now enjoying an absolute free run.
Watched up investigation. Why to drag India in the first go? Do you agree to this position of the government?
Do you know the previous government, like Awami League, led by Sheikh Hasina? The most of the criminal they already leave the Bangladesh for our neighboring country India.
Okay.
So it is the assumption most of the people of Bangladesh, the killer of Osman Faring, they leave the country and now they are staying in India. It is sourced by social media.
But on the basis of social media, your government also brought India into the picture. Do you find it a right decision to do that without getting the case properly investigated?
No, it is under investigation.
No, but the way Yunus government handled, because of the social media chatter only, the violence erupted in Dhaka, the arson took place, the media personnel were attacked, the media houses were burned.
We never support the attack of Pratham Alu and Daily Star. We protest very strongly, and our party senior leader, they also sympathy about this incident. So we cannot accept such kind of accident.
Okay, so but you say that the India's name was brought into the picture only on the basis of social media chatter.
Now we want to cooperation from India side, but we think they are involved a lot of propaganda about Bangladesh.
Okay. No,
My colleague Akansha Swaroop is also joining us with more. Akansha, we finally have begun to see possibly the first strands of some criticism that is coming in from the likes of the US or other, other Western countries who are maintaining a very conspicuous silence so far. Is pressure building on the Yunus administration?
Well, that's still fairly nascent to comment, because Shivani, remember, the core team of Donald Trump and the US President himself have maintained a strategic silence, whether it is, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the US Vice President, who is married to a Hindu lady, Usha Vance, in fact, J.D. Vance himself has been very silent. So is, the Director of National Intelligence of the United States, Tulsi Gabbard, who is a practicing Hindu herself. It's ironic that there had to be an attack on the church, which is why the BBC went ahead and published this news story. Till now, even the BBC was not being very active in their coverage. More importantly, if you look at the attacks on minorities, it's been happening unabated since August 5th, 2024, which was dubbed as the July Uprising. Since August 2024, more than 30 attacks on Christians alone have been reported. In fact, just in November of first week, there was a cathedral, the St. Mary's Cathedral in Dhaka, which happens to be the oldest Christian landmark in Dhaka, was attacked. And in 2001, there was a bombing in Gopalganj, which many believe, because it was the BNP and the Jamaat rule back then, has never really been ethically prosecuted. So if you look at these attacks, whether it is the Hindus, the Christians, the Ahmadiyas, the pattern is very much like that, on the lines of what we've been witnessing in Pakistan so far. And now, apart from the Hindus, you can see the Christians are also being targeted. Yes, the number of Hindus that have been targeted, it's almost like a genocide, but Christians, of course, not as many. But it's deeply disturbing that on Christmas Eve, such an attack on a church had to take place. All the minorities right now are begging and pleading, not just the Indian government, but Western forces, primarily the United States. The UN High Commissioner has maintained a silence, which of course is deafening rather. So we'll have to see if the lawmakers who've all penned a letter to Muhammad Yunus, in fact, one of the US congresspersons has also reached out to the US State Department. There are questions now being raised. Why shouldn't the Jamaat-e-Islami be termed as a foreign terrorist organization? All of these questions remain unanswered. Remember, the US particularly, which tom-toms itself for being a messiah of democracy, human rights, for them to be a mute spectator and be an onlooker to all the kind of anarchy and violence that is ensuing in Bangladesh, especially against the Christians. We'll have to see how the Trump administration, which as we all know is deeply religious and is in fact a firm believer in Christianity, how they respond to this attack on the church there in Bangladesh. Shivani.
Akansha, thanks a lot for bringing us more on this. On that note, we slip into a very short break, but stay with us. On the other side, we'll get you all the stories from the south of India.
For 20 years, we've been at it through power shifts and wars, financial upheavals, and inspiring triumphs.
India lifts the World Cup.
We were the constant in a whirlpool of change. For 20 years, we worked with one guiding philosophy: to chase the truth, to make sense. Celebrating 20 years of CNN News 18 makes sense.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Well, the Delhi High Court's recent decision to suspend former BJP MLA Kuldeep Sengar's life sentence in the Unao rape case has sparked massive outrage, with many questioning the Central Bureau of Investigation's handling of the case. According to court documents accessed exclusively by CNN News 18, the CBI admitted that an MLA isn't considered a public servant under Section 21 IPC, which impacted Sengar's sentencing. The agency didn't support the victim's 2019 petition to try Sengar under more severe IPC charges, citing they were not squarely applicable. The trial court noted the CBI's investigation was unfair, disadvantaging the victim. The victim's family alleges the agency colluded with Sengar to suppress evidence on her age, producing fabricated documents. The case, remember, raises concerns now about the CBI's role in ensuring justice for victim and complexities of prosecuting powerful individuals. Let's quickly give you a lowdown. Let's talk about the 3 moves that CBI must explain in the Unao rape case, and then we'll put out the exclusive documents we've accessed here as well. But the first big takeaway is legal formalism over victim justice. Was this prioritized? Instead of contesting the spirit of accountability, the CBI leaned on a narrow technical argument that an MLA is not a public servant under Section 21 IPC, fully aware that this would weaken the application of graver charges under POCSO. The question being asked here is, did CBI prioritize legal defensiveness over the survivor's right to strong prosecution? The second big takeaway, and the question being asked, is that the investigation marked by bias and not neutrality. Is that what's happened here? The High Court's own record is damning, which is the trial court found it an inescapable conclusion that CBI's investigating officer failed to conduct a fair probe, which leaves us with the question, is the victim justified in alleging active collusion, suppression of age-related evidence, and the introduction of fabricated documents? The third big question we ask, and this is the question that is being spoken of, institutional support when it mattered the most. Is that what's happened here? When the victim sought in 2019 to have Sengar tried under more stringent provisions as a public servant accused of rape, the CBI refused to back the plea, arguing charges were not squarely applicable. Which brings us to the question, did the CBI's refusal, noted by the High Court, effectively leave the survivor battling not just the accused, but the CBI itself? I do want to go across to Aman Sharma, who joins us with all these exclusive documents. Aman, tell us, what have we found out and why does this raise such serious questions?
Well, Kritvin, see, the CBI is now saying that they are going to file an urgent appeal in this matter, and that urgent appeal declaration came last night after the Unao rape victim had met Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. Before that, the CBI sources were saying they are still studying the judgment, but now they say they're going to challenge the judgment. But what has really happened during the course of this entire matter, in the High Court, in the trial court, raises big questions upon the CBI. Number one, the main stand that the High Court has taken to suspend the sentence of Mr. Kuldeep Singh Sengar is that he is not a public servant. If he is not a public servant, the aggravated sexual assault section of POCSO, which is Section 5C and Section 6, will not apply to him. That is the main contention, and that is why he has got the let-off in this particular case. Now, look at what the CBI says when it argues on this matter in the High Court. I'll quote from here. The CBI says, tackling the contention raised by Mr. Sengar that he is not a public servant for the purposes of the POCSO Act, and this is right from the court judgment. We are not quoting from anywhere else. We are quoting right from the court judgment. This is what the CBI told the High Court, that tackling the contention raised by Mr. Sengar that he is not a public servant for the purposes of the POCSO Act, the learned special public prosecutor of the CBI has submitted that even though it has been held by the apex court in a particular case that the MLA is not a public servant as defined under Section 21 of IPC,
Welcome back. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Shivani Gupta. We're getting you a CNN News 18 mega exclusive. Pakistan Railways has now suspended all train services in Balochistan. Jafar Express, Bolan Mail, Chaman Express and other trains and cargo trains have now been suspended. This is because Pak authorities' intel is reporting possible attacks on railways in Balochistan. The suspension, though, has disrupted civilian movement and logistical supply chains. My colleague Anand Narasimhan is also joining us with more on this. Anand, the intelligence warning is saying that there's a shift by Baloch separatist groups towards symbolic, high-impact targets aimed at embarrassing the Pakistani state on national days, and the railways, because they are poorly overseen, could be one of those big targets.
Well, good afternoon, Shivani, and to our viewers. The Jafar Express and this region between Jalalabad, Quetta have been very, very soft spots, and the Pakistan army, the military establishment suffered huge embarrassment when the Jafar Express was hijacked and more than 100 army personnel who were going back on leave in civilian clothing or off duty, they were all taken hostage while the rest were released, and it was big embarrassment because it showed the vulnerability of the Pak army. Now, on this day, today actually marks Muhammad Ali Jinnah's birth anniversary, and it's celebrated or hailed as a national day or a holiday in Pakistan. There was some credible intelligence which the Pakistani machinery has received, and that's why they've suspended all trains. Now, when they suspend trains, they also disrupt logistics, they disrupt trade, they disrupt economic activity and also human movement. And this comes at a huge cost to a nation which is already struggling with keeping its exchequer afloat and its treasuries going dry. So clearly, it is a double-edged sword for them. If they allow economic activity, they face the probability of some punitive action from the Baloch resistance and the Baloch army. On the other hand, if they don't, then they pay the cost because of the economic impact of it and the inconvenience that's caused to the people, and that will only further the dissonance or the disillusionment or disenfranchisement with the government in power and also the military establishment. But from both sides, it is important to also consider and understand that the Baloch themselves seem to be far more organized and far more potent, so much so that the entire establishment in Pakistan, which tends to credit itself as being able to try and bring down other nations in a matter of hours, etc., are being held to ransom by an internal resurgent group.
Absolutely, Anand. I do appreciate you joining us and giving us more perspective on this. So, the troubles in Pakistan don't end, and the relationship as far as Balochis are concerned is certainly going southwards. Time to focus on the south of India, and the big story that we're tracking, of course, is the heating up of the Tamil Nadu Assembly elections battle. Actor turned politician Vijay has now formally declared himself as the chief ministerial candidate for 2026, positioning his Tamalaga Vetri Kadagam as the alternative to Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. At a high-profile meeting, TVK passed a resolution to forge a mega anti-DMK front, with talks already underway. The entry of former AIA-DMK stalwart Sengotian has already buoyed Vijay's camp, and there are many southern stars who have started to praise him. In the latest, Kannada actor Kicha Sudeep has publicly praised Vijay's vision.
என்னை பொறுத்தவரையிலும் இந்த பொங்கல் முடிந்து அதற்கு பிறகு நீங்கள் ஒரு திருப்புமுனையை பார்க்கலாம். அனைத்து இந்திய அண்ணா திராவிட முன்னேற்ற கழகத்தில் சில பேர் வருவார்கள் என்று கேட்டால் வருவார்கள். தாவாக்கோடு என்னை போன்றவும் பேசுகிறோம். அவரும் சில கருத்துக்களை சொல்லிக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். அதற்கு நல்ல முடிவுகள் எதிர்பார்க்கலாம்.
Online leaders of TVK making tall claims that all the other political parties are in touch with them. The reality is TVK party is used as a tool by other political parties to increase their